in my frustration with it all, I went and lived off grid in the hills. So the only thing I do is take myself away from it. And coupled with that is, and it probably would affect. It might affect this conversation, or at least what I'm saying. But there's only so much you can give yourself to everyone else, and at some point, the polar bears are going to die, and there's not much of a way of stopping that because the world is populated by selfish people, innately selfish people, and there's not much that you can really do. You've got to look after yourself and look after the people, look after you.
That's right. It's your community. More and more we're finding, and that's where you find a bit of refuge and a bit of impact. It's your locals, your community, your own ecosystem.
Yeah.
Which is not a good thing because that's your own bubble. But what do you do?
And how do you how can that be ironed out of humanity in a way that lets it survive?
Yeah. And even with COVID, for example, which was a threat to humanity, right, on a global scale, right, didn't bring us together for a sustainable way, so it brought us together for a while, but then it dissipated,
And we were back in bed.
back to where we started.
And extraordinary. But my life has changed since between 2019 and now, not just through COVID. But there's a coldness about the world now and a distance between people that I don't remember ever seeing. Also, I went middle age in that same period, so anything could have been a feature. I didn't buy a convertible, but I did buy a nice big van. So those things. Maybe there's me having some of the naivety of youth peeled away, or the bitterness of age.
We have hope, right? We have hope, and hope gets dashed. And I think you got to come back to that. Yeah. Don't give up hope.
Got to follow good leaders and collect good followers.
Yeah, don't give up hope. And you got people in your corner.
Long way down. A little 2.5-year-old daughter who is tops, and she is. I was away for 2 days, Sunday night and Monday night, and I came back, and the dog's bigger, the kids are bigger. Wolfgang's got another wobbly tooth. He's just 6. He's lost his first tooth while I was away, and I get home and he's big cuddles, and I've got another one. And I was like, let's get it out, mate. Let's get it out. So the cheeky fella told me it was $10 for the tooth fairy. I said, mate,
where's the string tied to the door?
Yeah, let me tell you about the tooth fairy, mate. No, but
that makes life meaningful.
Yeah, there is sanctuary in it,
Yeah.
I'm an energetic person, and really up until the last few years haven't found a place to send that energy in a way that was really ever landed anywhere. So I was, traditionally my work would be, I'd have frustrations with managers, mostly because of their ability to see things that would just seem quite apparent. I used to think, maybe they're dumb or whatever. And then I started learning maybe there's just pressures and they do see it and they can't do it. And then I learned they're actually dumb. But then that energy was coming out. I'm saying, well, why can't we just do this? It's so clear the path is there. And I got stuck in structures. So the structural component of work always challenged me a little bit. So I needed, freedom of expression rather than, sit in a box. And I've also come from a small town. I think it contributed to being small town and a working mum at home. And so the sense of values really kind of matters more day to day for me, I seem, than others. I tend to trade less on values. And we've been using our leadership assessment tools, and it's something else maybe we can work with you guys to get better insights into me, psychologically about. But I don't trade right and wrong. There's not much of a softness around me. I'll fight to the death for what's right regardless. So it caused me to start. Guruing was a frustration with the behaviours I saw in people that claimed leadership roles without really the cultural authority to claim leadership, which really eroded. I mean, the leader should be someone you aspire to be and you want to get in and follow, not someone who abuses and mistreats and lies the people that are most dear to them, the people that are actually the most loyal followers of those leaders. So that happened a couple of times. I sat back and I watched, and I was like, hang on, these people are clowns. Much the same way. And regardless that you paid more, you've got a bigger business card, that doesn't satisfy, the conditions for me to try and follow a leader. And that had gone on for a while. I'd seen a few of them. And I thought, well, maybe it's me, because I was in this maturing phase. I was like, maybe I'm just sensitive to some things through life experience and others. But I just got to the point, and a little bit like kind of a bit heartbroken, if that kind of makes any sense. Not in a Shakespearean sense, but my little kind of care heart broke. I was like, I'm done. And so there's a process of going through that, like the soft breakup before we break up. I think everyone kind of after you break up, you declare I probably should have done that 6 months ago. And then we had Avery on the 1st of June 2020, and before the end of the month I was getting phone calls to come back, and it's quite clear that the people that were I was meant to be following, the people who claimed leadership, weren't really connected to me. They were connected to me as a functional object. Beau goes to work. These are the things that should happen at work. But it never really connected with me to say, there's no chance that I'm going to get Beau back to work 1 month after having a child. And if you're going to get me to come back to do something, it should be communicated in a way that talks to me, not talks to an employee. So kind of had misplaced part of that conversation. And it was just kind of like almost one phone conversation. I'd had thoughts about this for a while. Come back, you just have thoughts about breaking up before you have the courage to do it. But and then I just told him on the phone, done. And I didn't do anything, follow up an email, and then went down and spoke to Ali, my partner, and about what I'd just done. I didn't really talk to her so much about it. And she knew I was uncomfortable and knew it was having an effect on my health and well-being and stuff. Because I'm also quite romantic, right? So it's a passionate experience being around me. I don't know. And so there's big highs and there's big lows. And I think I kind of expressed some of those to you another time.
Who was in your corner then? Who was whispering in your ear? Did you have
supporters
at that time other than Ali, your wife?
No.
Didn't really...
And even then, it's not like quite a traditional view that work doesn't come home. So even today we still have conversations about work and experience at work. That's kind of two different worlds. But I didn't. I had people in our client space that kind of believed in values and stuff, so that gave me a bit of inspiration to stick to them rather than try and trade them. And there's lots of times when you can question yourself or trade values for some practical outcome. But I just found myself challenged in lying to myself just to please someone else. So it's never been really part of me. And then a couple of weeks later, I thought I'm going to have a go just looking after myself. So I planned to be kind of a 3-day, 4-day-a-week type contractor type single shingle model. And I had the skills and competencies and networks to be able to get that going. Of course, the market was going in a way that was reasonably easy to do that. And that's where I started. And then pretty quickly I couldn't stop myself going at it because there's good things and I can have an impact on doing stuff. So people, and I still have the same belief now. The primary goal in my life should be to help other people. And if we all do that, I'm going to get help. The best way to get something is to give something. It all works like that. You just got to hope that it goes around long enough that the ripples come back. And so that's I did a first contract. I delivered a bit of it until there's a first payment in. And with the first payment, I used it to fund the onboarding of an employee. And then I just thought there's a chance to make something here that can be different, and we can give more. If we all think like this, we can all give more when the world's a better place. And then that just went on. And then that took a while to kind of boil over. Like in some ways you can see things, but it takes time for them to come out. And so it took about a year for it to come out as this idea that put giving at the core of things, not just as a side thing. And I've always been a bit cynical about the give a big paycheck, give a big check to someone and take a photo of someone who's miserable and you help. it's never really landed on me, and I still see it today, and I can't understand the arrogance of people who try and promote giving and market misery. It just doesn't make any sense. Yes, that took a year, 18 months to get on, and then I was just trying to find the language for it, and it needs the way it's expressed is closely coupled with a commercial reality that giving is not what our industry does. It's known as a taking industry. So how do we genuinely communicate this central concept of helping other people, both the team and the community and clients, in a world that just hasn't got ears for that. And there's just not, and we still experience today. It was just on a conversation today about the way we structured our website, that we had to fade our purpose out of our services because people just put them too closely together. It's like, no, we don't need Indigenous services. It's like, hey, it's not. The services are provided. They're mainstream, normal services, but what we do with our money is trying to do something different. It's quite a complex thing to communicate with heart, and the knowledge gap in the people that need to hear it is big. So it quite often gets confused that, you do Aboriginal consulting. Like, that's not even a thing. Not even a thing, let alone anything that we're going to do, right? If you need Aboriginal consulting, go talk to elders. That's what that's about. I'm not that. We are not that. We're just part of a system. So, that's kind of the start being my frustration with values and behaviours and the actions I saw from people who claim themselves as leaders, and some horrific specific examples. Me boycotting that, culturally, individually boycotting that, going through a slow breakup process, crystallising in an event, when, the leaders had misread me as a person and my values and priorities, and recklessly quitting. 2-week-old child is definitely reckless. And then having life experiences where I've been the only one standing anyway, so there's no one to follow and there's no one to lead, so you just get up and start walking. That's all that. And then over time, just people go, actually, there's something in that.
Yeah.
The decision to quit was shaky. I kind of had a feeling that, I don't know, it's a common trait actually. You just have this you just know inside that you can get through stuff.
Yeah.
And it could be like kind of foolish ignorance, I don't know. Or it could be, foolish ignorance at one end, and it could be just, sort of like, brilliant luck at the other end, or confidence. But I kind of knew anyway. I was like, no, I've been poor and homeless before. This is not going to stop me now. So well, once you get that, there's nothing people can take away from you. Once you've had nothing, there's nothing that people can take away. All you can do is keep on going. So I wasn't worried about it. It wasn't a fearful moment. It was kind of, well, now I've got clear air, I'm going to figure the rest out. So I went on to try and figure it out. And then starting it was, and I haven't got any coach or mentor, no money, right? So Ngunnawal was started with $600, and on a website called Company 123. And I realise now in hindsight just how novice that is, right? Company 123, right? But they gave us a constitution out of the box and they had pre-registered the ABN, and I knew that's enough to take a product to market, so that's all I did.
Yeah.
But $600. I didn't have much more than $600 at that point, to be honest. From that point, I went, I'm charting my own course here. Whether it's just one course, and that I've got 2 young children. I want to be barefoot on the country. I'm not much of a city guy. I don't fancy an office. I don't really care so much about what other people think of me through their lenses. So I was kind of free. So the feeling at the time was there was a relief from a period of oppression. I think that's, if I still use the analogue of a breakup, I think that's quite an easy way to understand it, right? After it's done, you're like, that's so freeing, you know. And then I'm going to chart my own course.
Yeah.
And it just happens that charting your own course, you know, post that breakup was, you know, inherently required registering ABN, understanding a tax system, understanding legal obligations, signing yourself up for, you know, what seems, you know, crazy set of responsibilities with ASIC. Understanding how to put a financial system together, all those bits. I had the commercial acumen. I you know, I had all that piece in the consulting career I had before that. But naive around most of it. And I still say to people now, it's don't do it. Like, you've got to be really mad, because there's not. If you truly thought about it and you weighed it up, you'd say no. But I don't know if that's. You'd ever get, anyone who does it ever gets that objective cold look. And there are lots of people that, you know, do entrepreneurship and business leadership and other things. Very few of them actually sat in the seat and being the only person.
Or put their money where their mouth is.
Put their money where their mouth is, or put their family's money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
Those things. So it's easy on the box. It's easy to lecture other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a very lonely place.
Yeah.
On some days.
Yeah.
So, and then that piece of there, and then feeling that sense of responsibility, because also in that, so the same mental process is actually, it freed me up to be a little bit more like my inner self, which is kind of carefree. In our leadership models, it's called registered as high hedonism. Colourful is another one of the attributes that come out in the model, but I identify as a party boy, right? I like being with people. I'm also identify as introvert. I don't know if that really is a modern way. Maybe it's oversimplistic. I do like being with people. I like sharing energy, but it also takes a lot out of me to go back and go to ground. Which is why the offset of living out where I do and having the home life that I do kind of creates that balance. I'm saying this now, having been through those experiences and had the benefit of those reflections. It was quite tricky early on, because people that both in the team and the client were looking for a kind of like a single thing that they better understood. And with an omnivert, what they experience is volatility. You know, so, you know, Beau, you're a really cool, fun guy. Why are you being upset about this? Upset doesn't fit your profile. But I'm also quite fast and sharp. And so what people wanted was a more predictable thing, so they could better, without risk of being cynical, so they could better understand how to work around that for their own benefit. I think there's inherently amongst everyone a self-optimization. So people are like, oh no, Beau's a party boy, so he's never going to check my timesheet, so I'm never going to do it. Right? And I'm still not a timesheet checker. I fess up. Right? I've not got it in me to remember to go and check timesheets. I need a system that'll throw it, and then I get a timesheet and I go, well, that's disappointing. The person's not making the most of their life. You know, why would you choose death over life? You know, like, just choose life. So part of that happened, and what people were experiencing was a volatility. And I found it hard to be myself in the environment. So they sort of kind of, the work life and the client life sort of forced into one of the versions of me to come out, and I had to learn to be a bit more controlled. And it comes down to things like the kind of language you use to describe things. I use a lot of metaphors and analogues to try and bring like life and vision and smell and colour to things. Some people think I'm crazy. Why don't you just talk about that? Like, well, that's kind of a flat feature, and you already know all of that. I'm telling this story to carry that through and provide meaning to that in a way that I understand. Some of these things are really simple, and people think I'm simple. Some of them are way out there, and people think I'm way out there. But I deliberately do it just to try and give meaning to things that otherwise have very little meaning. So those are the things. So why don't you just talk about what I'm talking about? So I am talking about what you're talking about, but I'm just doing it from over here. So that was challenging to get those two to work together. And I still feel like I'm Even this, you're getting just me, right? There's no filter. There's not a work me, if I can put it that way. It's just me being. So that bumped around a little bit. There were two facets. So part of it is the people and cultural leadership, which people do want certainty and predictability, and I can provide that to an extent. In about year 2 of me on this, and I'm talking about the reference point of the last 2.5 years, so about the start of year 2, I was struggling with being that and not being myself. So I kind of went a bit, work reclusey. And it was still permitted at that point in time because the work environment didn't require full-time client contact and full-time team contact, and we're kind of all learning about, distributed and remote working and stuff like that. So I kind of went to ground, and I wasn't working at home and I wasn't working in the office. I was just being in places and working, and trying to, in a sense, save myself from the difficulty of being either one of those. Because working at home, the arrangement at home wasn't for that with kids and family and stuff. My brain would just easily drift off into the paddock and, I'll go fix that fence, or I've got to mow the grass, all those things. So cognitively I knew that I couldn't do that. It wasn't viable to do that. But emotionally, I knew that's where I wanted to be. There's a reason why we choose our homes and we love them so much. And I can understand wanting to be there so much, but it's just impractical to do so. And then so there was this period of sitting between those 2 points, and then getting into the office. I sort of strapped my boots up and went for it.
Yeah.
So that's in the people and culture piece, and then I sort of learned that I just had to explain to people what was going on in me and let people make a call as to whether that was okay or not, rather than try and be what people wanted me to be. I'm just far more broad about it now, and again, experiencing sharing that. Because you can take it or leave it. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. Particularly at my age, I'll do my best, but it is what it is. I am what I am. But then technically, to do the job, there's lots of precision required in doing the job, and I'm not a high precision person all the time. It takes a lot of energy for me to get into those things. So thinking about the functions we perform, also quite analytical. So laying out the functions we perform, understanding how those systems work, and then putting people in place that can run those systems. So now the timesheet is taken care of, and we have systems in place to control all those things. But it took a while to build a business that was big enough to sustain the cost of those systems. So there's a real difficult road in the middle of going, you want to be yourself and you don't want to be someone else, because that's what I set out to do. Forced to be a little bit of someone else, technically, offsetting who I wanted to be, which was just someone who's around good people and we all go somewhere together. And that sort of, you can imagine a percentage split of the pie type thing, to then realising, what I should do is specialise in being myself and find other people to specialise in being what they're being, and together we've got something fantastic. And now my appreciation of diversity is entirely different. And I constantly get frustrated with, in our client space, they talk about diversity. I said, diversity is not about gender at all, and it's not even about cultural backgrounds, right? It's about skill sets and values. So how do we get people with different skills and different values to work together so that we can all be just the best of ourselves? Because I don't care, who really, in a day-to-day sense, when you're working with someone, what do you care what your voice sounds like, or what colour your skin is, or whether you're tall or short, or boy or girl, or anything in between? It just doesn't seem to be the key feature that helps us all get along. So I'm a huge advocate of diversity, but it's not a diversity that's readily, tagged out there. I think they flip it and say, where's the inauthentic leader? Find that person and talk to them.
Yeah.
So what is it to be more authentic is to stop pretending.
Yeah.
I can't really get my head around it.
Exactly.
And then to train people to be authentic leaders is just doubling down on how weird that is. There's probably a few big blocks of challenges or frames in which to put them. The reality of a commercial business is you need money to pay people, and no one works for free. Even in a profit for purpose type business, people still need to pay their mortgage and don't take under market salaries.
Sure.
So the burden of the giving sits pretty well entirely on the shareholders of the company and the decisions that they make. I've not yet had anyone say, great, I'll take $30,000 less in pay if you donate that $30,000 off to someone else. It just doesn't happen. What people do is they say, can you get a full market salary, please? And can you please show me every cent that you're giving? So part of it is in people's understanding about their place in the community of people generating the money to give. When people provide the services for free, it's a bit different because they then have a connection. So I think we're going to try and work on that a bit more. But one of the big challenges is getting people to appreciate just how money moves in a small business and how costly it is to run. And on the face value, it looks like a lot of money moves around. If that was the case, I should be stinking rich and wearing better clothes, right? But it's just not it. So that's one of them, is the team's expectations of what it means to be part of something that's doing this. And that's been a bit bruising as well. So we maintain the discretion principle, not just for marketing other people, not just to avoid marketing other people's misery, but it's an incredibly volatile thing. And sometimes you've got enough money to give, and other times you don't. And in the giving space, it's quite temporal in that people want to see all the money given today. And I've got a vision for where a sustainable model for giving money and delivering services for free. But it takes I need money to get there. And so there's this trade-off between meeting the day-to-day expectations of, can I get a photo of someone you're helping, please? I'm like, no, that person's just coming out of jail. You want me to go take a photo of them and show you so you can be satisfied that I'm not lacking integrity? It just makes no sense, right? And I explained it to them, and they're like, oh, yeah, I suppose. I get what I'm asking for now. Another part is the clients, and we've got government sector clients, and they've got a fixed decision framework based on the concept of value, right? So we're trying to appeal to a value proposition that's beyond an individual business unit's need. But yet all they want is their problem solved for the lowest price. And there's a lot of vagary in how they explain their problem. And there's a whole lot of uncertainty about whether their problem's actually going to be solved by anyone. But there's some people going to give it a go. So we try and explain to them, yes, we'll do the job. But part of the package of doing the job is that this is who we are and what we want to do with the money you pay us. And in purely commercial businesses, you've got more freedom of movement around some of those things. And the bigger business, the bigger the business is, the more flexibility they have in the price. So we get frustrated sometimes on price-based decisions rather than value-based decisions, which is peculiar because I think if you were to lay it out, I think we're trying to do a lot of the same things that the government's trying to do, various governments are trying to do. And I see the headline messages, and without getting too cynical about it, there's this kind of big socio-political narrative that comes out around, in our case, Aboriginal people getting ahead. When it comes to the direct actions that the actors in government can make, the employees who are making procurement spends every day, I get the sense they think there might be something else going on. Why would someone be trying to help someone else? And I think that hits to a broader aspect of society that there's not a lot of day-to-day compassion in the world. And I don't think post-COVID much has happened to improve that. But that's one of the other big challenges, is being seen by people on the outside as genuinely trying to just be part of something helping. And it's like there's a cynicism out there across the board.
Yeah, big challenges.
But we keep on going. But so even just quick flash of the past, the reason why I came to Canberra was for much the same reason. So it was a at its core, a rights and a wrongs thing. I decided not to be around wrongs, and I wanted to be around rights. And I thought that there's a chance to be part of something that was more right inside government. It took about 18 months for me to learn and go, oh wow, this is a very mixed bag here. And then time, a couple of different jobs to figure out how to make the best contribution to what's right. Because it's ultimately an exchange about how much can you give versus how much do you need. So that's still what brought me here, and I left a reasonable job with a beautiful office outlook in a kind of a niche investment banking market, and to come down and work in defence as an EL1. How funny is that? So it's the same constant driver as a quick flash of the past. I don't think, and as you get older, you start to see, I guess you said see your life experiences through a modern lens, and I really like that although it's painful to be reflective, I really like that I'm reflective. It makes for a really rich life, and I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve a lot when I explain these things, and otherwise people go, why do you just shut up, Beau? But I think I'm better off having it out there and being honest with myself and being honest with other people, because at least then you know who your friends and enemies are from the start. It becomes a lot easier to get through. And sometimes I lack social insight, so it's an easy way to get people to identify who's nice and who's not nice. I mean, that's open. The future for me is to go back to ground, to just go back to be barefoot in the dirt type thing, So even now, there's a tension between what the future of the business and my future are not the same story.
Okay.
It is not me and I am not it. And I've been conscious about that from the start, to design in a degree of distance. I'm quite innately, personality is hugely important in small business, and there's a difficult challenge to transition that to others, and to carry on the vision, and provide freedom of decisions for any of the next generation. But my goal over the next 5 years is to make the business in itself a rolling, sustainable, viable entity without me there. And that would be the proudest day, to be able to walk out the door and go, it's launched. It's launched. It's not an identity thing for me. I never fancy myself being, I still don't have a fancy title. I still struggle with the titles of options CEO or managing director. But my working title is just an employee title, right? So it's never been part of me. It's not an identity piece. So I'm looking forward to walking out the door, I suppose, and just going to be with my family. Whether that can happen on 5 years, I don't know. But it's a design goal. It's an open design goal. I think it was even before we turned 2. I started scouting for a CEO in development. But kind of tricky, a very tricky thing to find someone who's got a vision, and energy, who can give so much. So there's like a foolishness of being a business owner. It's a silly endeavour.
I love it though.
Yeah, I love it. At the same time, there's so much of me as an expression. I still say this is the best job I've ever had.
Yeah.
At no point have I been able to give so much of myself to something and feel like so much of it lands. There are times when it's rocky, and there's times when it's lonely, and there's decisions you've got to make, or conversations only you can have. So it's not all champagne. But yeah, so to be able to find that and grow someone, and then give them something that really the most dangerous part's already done. If we weren't going to make it, we probably wouldn't have already made it by now. We've got a good run. Casually I say we're not dead yet, so let's keep on going. So that's the goal, is to make that, and then there's another component of the business that I think is responding to a market opportunity, and kind of responding to my want to do more. It's like you could not push the throttle hard enough at any point for me. I think there should always be as full go as possible. Which is to kind of build a collaboration of smalls that we can then take on the giants and kind of restore some justice in the business community. That again, in the last year, you've seen the gross exploitation that happens when that happens. And then use revenue from those things to build a sovereign wealth fund that can independently steward resources to help Aboriginal people get ahead, rather than rely on what's obviously an unstable government to do that. So, one of the structural failures in advancing lives of Aboriginal people is that the trickle feed of resources. And when we talk about empowerment and ownership, what they need is the ability to make their own decisions. Not have decisions made for them in some grants processing office somewhere in Tuggeranong, type thing. So what I want to do is try and take the power back by taking the money. I'm quite proud to say, the government gives our money back, and we're going to go do something meaningful with it that otherwise they couldn't do. We can't solve all the problems, but certainly lots of gaps. And then one of the problem challenges with the close the gap concept there are lots of gaps and they're nationwide gaps. But when you're in that, the gap is very, very small, and it's just one person. If they focused on closing one person's gap, that would be a lot better. It would be impact, instead of, funding, a private company to do COVID something's over there, or to do, to put posters up about dental care. Just fund a dentist who goes and treats dental patients. So I want to get in the business of just that very specific, action-oriented impact, and it's going to take a lot of money to do it.
Is there a particular area of focus? Like, is it health, education?
No.
Is it intersectional? Is it?
No. And so when I've been in times of need, it's never been as clear cut as that. So we still experience now people who just need money. There's some people that the ATO is chasing them and take their house away. Otherwise, successful people just down the period of luck, who wouldn't fit any of the programs to say can be supported. But nonetheless, it's not in anyone's best interest to let them lose their house. There are other people, kids at school. I've got a particular interest in sole parents looking after kids, because it's kind of the most vulnerable piece. But it's not cut by one particular need. I think it's got to be an individual-based thing. And that's one of the complexities about government. If you look at what they're trying to do in social advancement, it's not nuanced in that way.
You can't do
that. So we help old people, we help young people. Empowering stuff, because the theme would be, what's the social mobilisation that can happen as a result of us doing something?
Nice.
Which is the difficulty around giving money. You can give money, that's an easy metric. But the goal isn't to give money away, and the goal isn't for them to have money. The goal is for them to be more empowered to look after themselves next year and the year after that. So sometimes it's a community-based piece. Where we've got some ideas on the cook about how to develop commercial businesses that can have their revenue tip into Aboriginal communities. So there's an ongoing fund rather than relying on grants. I get very frustrated by grants and the volatility in them.
There's a lot happening with the Treasurer talking about social enterprise and preferencing social enterprises now for purpose organisations, and the sort of tax structures and procurement around that sort of type, and bringing them in because of the opportunities. So
look forward to coming to the meetings.
It does, I know. I was listening to the radio last week. There is talk.
One of the concerns I've got around this becoming more widespread is the risk of exploitation by lack of genuine players. I think the path that we've been on is honest and genuine. But if it becomes a well understood framework, and it's tension, because I want it to become the framework, but I know if it becomes a framework, the lawyers are going to get in and hack the system, and the framework's going to be pulled apart.
Then you get the big players crafting the old social enterprises,
We see it at the moment. So there's a perception that there's a massive advantage to be had by identifying as Indigenous business. So big businesses went and set up Indigenous businesses.
Good example.
All over the place, and there's very few of those are true real players, right? It's widely known. They got a very ugly term for it, and I'm totally against the term. But it is predation from very wealthy non-Indigenous people on Indigenous people seeking to exploit them for their own gain. It's endemic. I've got a job to try and fix that, and so far as I can. So there's a huge advocacy footprint I've got for social justice. And kind of fighting the corruption that happens, moral corruption that happens. Yeah, so even if it gets mainstream, people will ruin it.
Yeah, it's like greenwashing as well, right? You see, big companies like KPMG, Mercer, all the big players talk about being ESG experts, carbon minimization experts. They're one of the biggest emitters, but they proclaim to be helpful in this area when they're not, and because the money is there. So
all the way through. Qantas, the great Australian, doesn't pay any tax. Get your head around that. I can't understand it. But that's my fear. So I really like.
Yeah.
I would like it to be the norm. But it's also very dangerous to become the norm, because then there is no place for. Well, maybe it's part of innovation, but there's no then refined place to have the values-based people to do our thing.
So
maybe that's deep cynicism. I don't know
What's
what
the role of? It comes
Yeah.
down to the role of government in some ways as well. What role do government play in supporting these sorts of ideas and initiatives?
When you throw money there,
yeah,
you get everyone.
you're going to get
It's a bit like us saying we don't want everyone to be a B Corp. We want to be a B Corp ourselves, because we know we're sincere. We put the effort in, and we know what it means. And we hold ourselves accountable. But if money is thrown to organizations to become B Corps, you can imagine what's going to happen. Everyone's going to game it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But so the injustice in the Indigenous business sector, as the government calls it, is now 10 years on. And it's just now hitting the ground with a thud, and hopefully there's some change afoot. What the change is, I don't know. Surely it's only 10 years. There's another 10 years before it needs to freshen up again. So it might be the same around, sustainable enterprises or purpose enterprises or others. So there's hope, but it's just, maybe I shouldn't be so naive to think that there is a plateau of a higher place, because it'll all just be taken over by other money. But maybe that's a bit too cynical.